So welcome everybody to today's CyberWise chat. I'm Diana Graber. I'm the author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and also the founder of CyberWise and CyberCivics, here today as always with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who's the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. And we are going to chat today about ChatGPT. If you don't already know what this is, it's the popular new AI chatbot that can write essays, solve complex problems, do homework, and hopefully make dinner. I don't know if I can do that, but I wish I could. It has many parents and educators into a panic, and we're going to talk about that today. To cheat, that they'll never learn how to write or think for themselves. And some school districts, really big districts, have already banned its use as a tool. By the way, it is the fastest growing consumer product in history. So if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to check it out. So we did not invite a special guest today because we thought our third guest would actually be ChatGPT. So we posed some of the questions that we got from you and that we wanted to ask today. We posed those questions to ChatGPT and we are going to share its answers with you. So the obvious first question we asked it is, what the heck is ChatGPT? Here's what it said. I'm ChatGPT, a language model developed by OpenAI. I was trained on a large data set of text, including books, articles, and websites, using a machine learning technique called deep learning. My purpose is to understand and generate human-like text in response to questions and prompts. I can answer questions, provide information, and engage in conversations on a wide range of topics. Now, Pam, will you please interpret that for us?
Well, actually, I think ChatGPT does a pretty good job of sounding friendly and using regular language. But let's talk a little bit about the distinction between AI and machine learning and algorithms, which you've heard us talk a lot about before, because we talk about algorithms as the things that serve up content to your kids on these various social media apps. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is really a broad concept. All it is describing all of these different approaches for the ability of computers to identify, synthesize, or bring together and infer information based upon the data that it's given. So it's mimicking cognitive functions such as learning and problem solving. Machine learning is the actual application, as you heard ChatGPT saying, that's what allows ChatGPT to take in information and then learn or make changes to their processing patterns and their algorithms based upon the data that they get. An algorithm is a set of instructions. So machine learning is a group of algorithms taken together that work together, that adapt as they get new information. So they're responsive to the environment based upon the information they get, just as you're responsive to the environment when you see traffic ahead and you decide to take a side road. So it's really that kind of response that it's using to make decisions. It's very similar to what you see in the recommendations of Amazon or Netflix, or how your car can self-drive or your GPS can calculate the best route for you.
Yeah, and I think what's really important in what you said here, Pam, it's kind of just where we're going with technology. I mean, this stuff has been around for a really long time. It's getting better and better and better, and it's changing. So more and more stuff is done through AI, deep learning, all of that. As you all know, if you've attended these before, I'm a big proponent of teaching kids what this stuff is and how it works. And there's so many ways to teach them that are very basic, so they have a very general understanding of how powerful the tools are, but also what their limitations are, because there's a lot of limitations with this. For example, with ChatGPT, you're going to get a lot of misinformation. So it really is depends on us as humans to check our sources, to check the information. The other thing is to remember how it works. It's culling data from all over the internet, right? All the data that we freely give away whenever we use the internet. So it's collecting those huge amounts of data and it's synthesizing it to give you a quick answer. And so something I read that I thought was really smart, it's giving you an average answer. It's not giving you a great answer. It's not giving you a crappy answer. It's giving you an average of what everyone else out there thinks or has thought or has put on the internet, true or false, right? Good or bad. So
good or bad, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not, there's no brain, it's not using critical thinking. It's using the law of averages. So I think that's a super important concept to understand and to share with kids, because it can seem very daunting if you don't know what AI is or machine learning or any of that stuff. But when you synthesize it down to its very core elements, it really isn't that daunting. Do you think that's fair to say, Pam?
Yeah, and I do. And, a really simplistic example is, you have a Netflix account. And so you log in and it shows you movies that you like. Well, if I go away to teach for a week and come back, my Netflix account is serving me up all kinds of old war movies because that's what my husband watches the entire week that I'm gone. So it's taking the average of all of our recommendations, but those aren't particularly useful to me. Then they aren't accurate, but they are in fact an average. And so ChatGPT is going out there and scooping up all of this information, which may or may not, as Diana said, be relevant to the kind of answers you want for a question.
Right. And again, let's break it down into its core elements. It's understanding what an algorithm is and how it works. And so, for a lot of adults, kind of their eyes roll backwards. But when we teach it to kids in the classroom through cyber civics, we have such a fun lesson. Like the kids come in and give them a piece of paper, they make a paper airplane, right? Every kid in the world knows how to do that. Next step is they have to write the instructions on how they made the paper airplane. They look at those instructions, that's an algorithm. That's all an algorithm is. It's a set of instructions. So that breaks it down into an element that a kid can understand, so that when they're fed things on the internet through algorithms, they're like, oh, just someone wrote instructions. And that's how it knows what to give me. And
Right.
same kind of lessons that introduce all these other topics that it's really important for all of us to understand.
One thing will say in to the benefit of ChatGPT is that they have made a significant effort to identify keywords to limit their searches to avoid, whenever possible, hate speech and pornography and racism and all of those things. Obviously, it's not impossible across the entire web, but they recognize that as a potential problem and are doing their best to keep that from being part of that search.
Yeah, and anyone that's here, I know we got a lot of emails from teachers ahead of time that are going to watch this afterwards. But anyone that's here, please try it. It's really cool. I don't know, I love new technology. Maybe it's just me, but it's a really interesting tool to use. And here at Cyberwise and Cyber Civics, we're cranking out like data and information and infographics and newsletters all the time. And sometimes we get stuck. So we've given it prompts to give us ideas on how to like make things more interesting or better. And it's just such a great stepping off point. It's like having a second brain that helps you think through problems and all that. So I would really encourage you to try it with your kids. But before we get to that, because that's sort of our ending pitch here, I wanted to talk about what I hear from parents and what Pam has heard as well. What are they freaking out about? What is it about this particular piece of AI that you're hearing that parents freak out about? I know what I hear. I asked ChatGPT, so I'm going to share that with you. It's possible that some parents and teachers may be concerned or even freaking out about ChatGPT and other advanced AI language models because of concerns misuse of these technologies or the impact they may have upon children and young people. So in summary, these were the things it told us we should worry about: misinformation, which I just talked about, cyberbullying, grooming, harassment, and impact on social emotional development because of too much screen time. So in your view, Pam, which of those are the things that we should worry about most?
Well, I think that the real question is, do kids understand when it's okay to use something like this and when it's not? Because our basic premise is this technology is not going away. So it's really important to learn how to use it and when not to use it, so that kids are motivated to do the right things. I do know that there's been a lot of use of similar chatbots to create trouble on the internet, cause social distress. Um, it's obviously going to be a problem for bullying, but I think the biggest thing that parents worry about and that teachers worry about is plagiarism or not doing the work themselves.
Yeah.
Now, we've already had that worry over a number of different technologies. Every time we have a new technology, we worry about, how this is the end of life as we know it. And in some ways it is, but not in a bad way.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned copyright and plagiarism and all that. And first of all, those worries that ChatGPT brought up are worries that we've had since the internet happened in the very beginning. So worries have not changed. But plagiarism, copyright, all that stuff is so important even before ChatGPT to teach kids. And I will tell you that when we do cyber civics, which is 3 years of a whole bunch of stuff, I always quiz the kids at the end of 3 years and say, what were your favorite lessons? And every year they say copyright. And
Interesting.
I know, because it sounds boring to an adult, right? But when I dive in to ask the kids what it is they like about it, they all imagine themselves being some sort of creative artist and sharing something on the internet. And they want to retain ownership of that something. They don't like the thought that someone else might take credit for it or take it away or it wouldn't belong to them. And so that's a really important concept for kids to think about themselves as that person who puts content out there and then build upon that care or understanding. Okay, well, what do you feel like if someone plagiarizes you? Or what do you know what paraphrasing is? Like, how do you paraphrase something? But who is the person who originated the source? Kids care about that stuff. And I think now that we have these really advanced AIs coming out that are going to cull information from the internet more than ever, tap into that care. Teach kids, where does information come from? Who's the author? Should we credit our sources? Who is the source? How do we find out who the source is? All of those critical thinking skills are more important than ever with this new AI coming out. So I'm lucky I get to teach it in the classroom. I hope that you will talk to your kids about these topics to help. Pam came up with a great idea. We are going to send you attending the webinar today and anybody who checks our recording afterwards, a PDF with great talking points and questions you can go through with your children to help them understand ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think that's, just having those talking points is important. And I love, Diana, the way that your lesson makes media personal, because it's very difficult to understand copyright or plagiarism when it's also distant from something that has meaning to you. But understanding what that means to lose your rights over something. I mean, you had similar results when you did the Snapchat lesson and they found out they don't own their pictures. So that those kinds of things really drive home some of the limitations of these different tools and make kids think more critically about them. The one thing that ChatGPT can do badly is give you accurate information. So unless you know what you're talking about, it's a very dangerous tool. So as you're busy freaking out, try not to, take a deep breath, but also make sure that kids understand that if they use it, they're very likely going to get caught. I have, even at the graduate level, a lot of problem with plagiarizing because it's so easy to cut and paste. There are a lot of ways for me to tell that it's plagiarized even before I put it into one of those tools like Turnitin. I can tell by voice, I can tell by word use anytime I've spent some time around a person. And so that was, sort of my takeaway first using it, is that it's very fond of certain semantic constructions. It likes to say firstly, secondly, and in conclusion, right? So, and it does that all the time. So it's got these patterns that will be very easily recognizable by teachers and professors everywhere.
Yeah, and there's already tools out there to detect when ChatGPT has been used, and those tools are brand new. They're going to get better and better. So for every tool, there's another tool. So that stuff is going to be out there. I did want to share, we have so many great resources that we pulled in order to prepare for this, but one of the really good ones was about misinformation. And it's an article in AP News called Learning to Lie, AI Tools Adept at Creating Disinformation. Here's a great little quote from it. In the majority of cases, when researchers asked ChatGPT to create disinformation, it did so on topics including vaccines, COVID, and the January 6th insurrection, and more. The rapid development of AI-powered tools has created an arms race between AI creators and bad actors eager to misuse the technology. So all of this just really calls on us and kids using their critical thinking skills more than ever when they take a look at information online.
I think it's, parents should know that the kids aren't 100% behind this either. They have as many misgivings about ChatGPT and how it's going to be used as parents and teachers do. So that's why it's really important to have these conversations, because you want to be able to hear how they're concerned about it or how they think it would negatively affect their lives as well as positively. Because if you can give them tools to use it positively, it can be very productive, but it can also impair their learning process or their comfort with the learning process, which is even more important.
Yeah, and I think, we got to remember too, kids are using so many AI tools already that we may not even know about, and some of them are awesome, some of them are not so awesome, but I'm just going to give you a couple examples. So I have a daughter in college and she hates reading. She loves to she's a great auditory learner. So she found a tool online that will read her PDFs and textbooks to her. but even better, it will read it to her in the voice of a celebrity. Like one of her PDFs was being read to her by Gwyneth Paltrow. So, but she says it's great because she can do other things and listen to all the coursework she has at the same time. So that's a great learning tool for her. I have another daughter who shared with me this morning. She said, have you heard what the kids are doing on TikTok? And so kids love to watch videos and hear audio about other kids playing video games. That's a really big deal. I hear about it from my middle school students all the time. So there's an AI tool that will take famous people's voices and have them playing video games. So right now on TikTok, what's really big is hearing this AI tool create voices of past and current presidents playing video games together. So I'm going to play for you, it's very short, a little clip of Trump, Biden, and Obama playing Minecraft together. This is super viral right now. I apologize in advance, there's some bad language, but I wanted to give you a sense of what the kids are listening to. So let me just get bear with me here. Oh, sorry, Pam, you're gonna have to.
No, but I think this is a great example of.
Destroy them? Not right now, Trump.
Not right now, bro. I literally don't even know where the fuck you at.
Fine, guess I'll do it myself. But I'm not giving you guys any of the diamonds I find.
Donald, no need to be rude. I'm trading with some villagers I found using the emeralds we mined earlier. I'll head over when I'm done.
Trump, I don't give a single fuck.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. But you see, it's these three presidents. If I played it longer, you'd hear Hillary's voice. She comes in and tells them to stop arguing. So, you know, AI is all over the place. So we have to just ask kids, what are you using? How does it work? Is it beneficial? Is it not beneficial? You know, anyway, great
Well, I think this
information.
such a great example of how kids use things in ways that we would not expect. You know, when my girls were little, I used to bother me that they would take the doll from this set with the teddy bear from that set, and they would all be in the classroom. So they never used things the way it's, you know, it's sort of promoted. And I love that they're figuring out ways to do these sort of creative things and mashups and have fun with it. As a parent and as a teacher, it's important to point out to them that that is in fact an AI function. They might not even know that. They might just think it's a cool app that translates voices. And the more understanding they have of all of these things it can do, because AI can do some remarkable things that will make life better, you know, for everyone.
Right.
But it's important to know.
Yeah. And also these are the jobs of the future, right? So one of the really great articles I read was from Khan Academy, and it talked about, you know, how they believed it was a mistake for these school districts to ban ChatGPT. And this is a great quote too. The same week that the New York City public schools banned ChatGPT, Anthropic, I think that's the name of it, an AI safety and research company posted a prompt engineer job paying $275,000 a year. So a prompt engineer is somebody who creates the software for these prompts that you write into things like ChatGPT. But I mean, starting salary, $275,000 a year, that's a pretty good salary. So, you know, this is what we have to think about preparing kids for the jobs of the future.
Yeah, you know, and if you ask ChatGPT what it's good for, it'll tell you that it's going to impact healthcare and vehicles and natural language processing and marketing and all of these things. But from a very personal point of view, it's a wonderful way to brainstorm.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful way to avoid that sort of blank page phenomenon where we have to write something, whether it's a memo or whatever, and you have some ideas, but you have no sense of how to put it together. It's a great tool, just like a mind map would be, to get your ideas out and help you articulate, you know, what it is you're trying to say, so that then you can take it out and edit it to suit you.
Right. And I just wanted to remind you, if you are watching the webinar, feel free to put any questions you have into the chat box. That's why my eyes are darting, because I'm checking it every so often. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about how teachers can use ChatGPT. We had a lot of teachers contact us about this specific webinar, so I want to address that audience. But Pam, let's talk about some ideas, and we can talk of it from two different perspectives. I'm working with middle school students. Pam's working with college students. So how might you use it, Pam, as a teaching tool?
Well, one of the things that I have heard several people talk about is the ability of ChatGPT to help you create a syllabus. Creating a syllabus is an extraordinarily time-consuming thing, particularly in a field where there's so much new information, like media literacy or media psychology. So you're continually having to search and find out what's new and what are people talking about. And ChatGPT can take some very basic parameters and offer you up some suggestions of things to add. It can also write prompts of questions for students to answer in essays. So it can really help you build out a very rich syllabus, and you can tell it what age level you want to talk to. So it really allows you to do the thinking part, what needs to be in this syllabus, and not, how do I fill up 10 weeks, or how do I divide this into 10 weeks, and all of the things that are time consuming but aren't the part where your expertise is really involved.
Yeah, and I was thinking it in terms of younger kids, and I've been hearing this from other teachers too, but it really, it pushes us to go back to pen and paper in the classroom, to give them the writing prompts, no help at all, just for them to use their brains, discuss with their peers, write in the classroom and come up with original stuff. I know with the pandemic, computers really moved into like the elementary classroom before teachers are really ready to use them. And I think maybe it's a time to put them out again and like have the kids write organically. And then they can check the stuff at home, or maybe, use a ChatGPT to get other ideas that maybe they integrate into their paper later. But, you can still have kids learn to write the old fashioned way and just use this to augment. So I
Yeah.
asked ChatGPT that question too. Like how
What did she have to say?
yeah, what did she have to say? Let's see. You can use it to answer student questions. So if a teacher gets stuck, go to ChatGPT instead of Google, etc. To generate writing prompts, to support research and inquiry, to enhance language learning. Oh, that's interesting, especially for foreign language users, creating interactive experiences and personalized learning. So
It would be great for helping you create a quiz out of a set of information. One of the things that we often talk about, and there's a lot of research about the importance of reading to develop your vocabulary, to develop your empathy for other characters. In fact, reading is a very important way of learning sort of broader social skills. But a tool like ChatGPT also has the potential for helping kids learn how to write, because it's very clear, direct statements. They're not complicated. They aren't trying to be fancy. And having a child look at that and analyze it can be a very powerful way of helping them see what voices, what's in there that's right. Where would you add something? How do your sentences compare to those sentences? And to really look at it that way in a very personalized way.
And don't you think, Pam, that there's really an opportunity here to use it for ethical thinking as well? Because there are so many ethical issues involved in all kinds of AI. It's one of our lessons that we have in cyber civics, AI and ethical thinking, because I want students to think about who is creating the AI and how are they building that ethical thinking in, or are they? And who's making decisions, and what is the data set coming from? And is everyone represented? There's a lot of big questions involved in this new technology. And, I think instead of just using it, we need to talk about why and how it's used, because, again, that ethical thinking piece is really important. And these are the kids that are going to grow up and create new technologies. And we hope that they remember that and think about the ethical component, how it impacts people, the effect it might have when they're creating this stuff.
That's so true, because every piece of instruction in an algorithm is a decision about something.
Right.
What to include, what not to include. And at the end of it, it all sort of comes out of this black box and it gives you something. But if you don't know what all those choices were, you have no way of knowing any sort of implicit bias or anything that would skew it in one way or the other. And so understanding that is really a key skill. And then you can take that with kids and say, okay, how would you use this? What would you use it for? Well, what's an okay use? What's not an okay use? What's the coolest thing you can think of to do with it?
Right.
Those kind of things.
Yeah, and it makes me think of a lesson I actually borrowed from Dr. Jason Oler, which is a wonderful one in his book. And it was to talk to kids about self-driving cars and how there's a lot of ethical choices that need to be made when you're creating a self-driving car. And one of the examples he gives is, you know, you're creating a car, you have somebody in the road that you might run over, and you have three choices. You can hop on the sidewalk, perhaps run over that person. You could do something else, but it might hurt this person. But it's like three horrible choices. What choice do you make? And so it gets kids thinking like, wow, someone's got to think through all these possible scenarios when they're creating AI. It's not just a scientific creation, it's an ethical and moral creation as well.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's the classic trolley challenge in philosophy.
right, right. And it just, you know, it goes to show you this stuff even applies to our scientific inventions, technological inventions. All right, so I want to make sure here we talk about, we got a lot of notes here. So I
Why
want
don't
to
we-
talk about what
Go
kids
ahead.
think about ChatGPT. I know we mentioned that a little bit earlier, Pam, but you ran across
Yeah, I ran across some interviews in the New York Times, and some of the kids were very positive. This is the future. We need to figure out how to use this. It's going to really
somebody's dog.
my dog really improve my writing. Whereas others were really concerned that it was going to undermine the whole learning process. So those kids have the exact same worries that parents do. Interestingly, there in psychology, there's something called sort of attribution bias, which is that you think things like that are going to affect other people, but not you. So all of these kids are like, I wouldn't use it. I would never do that. But all these other kids are going to use it in that way. One student, though, and this is my favorite quote, is just everyone needs to chill out, right? This is not the end of the world, and it's not the eradication of writing as a whole. That was a sort of a nice perspective taking, especially for a teenager, that, you know, that this is just another one of those disruptive technologies that we have to figure out how to manage. And if we do that, we can get the upside. And if we just suppress it, that's what I wanted to say about banning ChatGPT. The first thing you can do to make your teenagers interested in something is to ban it.
Yeah.
Right.
Ban
So you're
never
much
works.
better off. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Banning never works. Kids will find it elsewhere. We do have a question here, Pam. I'm going to read real quick. I run a graduate writing center. My educational institution is considering updating our statement on plagiarism in the handbook to include the use of ChatGPT as an example of plagiarism. Are we being too hasty, or should we consider student use of ChatGPT to write their papers a legit concern? Right in line with what we were just talking about.
Yeah, you know, I think they should be a little bit cautious about just chucking it in there with plagiarism, because plagiarism is really copying someone else's words or resubmitting a paper you already got credit for, but that's sort of a different thing. So it's a direct replication, whereas ChatGPT, for it to be any good coming back out, actually has to require some reasonable prompts going in. So what I would want to say is that if anyone uses that as a writing tool, they have to disclose it on their paper and include the prompts they used. I think it will be very quickly easy to catch people who are using it. For a lot of students with special needs, students that are not native English language speakers, it's going to be a tremendous help.
Yeah.
But you have to say, okay, people can use this. It's a tool, but you have to tell us that you use this.
Yeah. So I think it goes back to that ethical thinking piece. You have to say, look, I did use this. And secondly, I checked my sources and information, and here are my sources. But it even goes back earlier than that. And, you know, I think it's really important that our kids, before they reach college, understand the ownership of information online. That whole copyright piece that I just talked about, fair use, is important for them to understand the difference between plagiarism and copyright, and also how do you paraphrase and how do you cite your sources, how you cite internet sources. It's a huge, you know, that's information literacy. It's what we teach in the second year of cybercivics, but all of those lessons are so important today. And I know a lot of kids are coming out of high school without that general understanding. They can't be good users of ChatGPT unless they have that foundational understanding of what is information literacy today.
Yeah, and I think it's very difficult, in this world where so much is available, there is a lot of stuff that's written by other people. 50% of all the internet content is written by copywriters, not the people who sign their names to these blogs. So there's a social norm about how this content is generated that is a little bit divorced from these lessons that you're trying to teach in cybercivics, which makes those all the more important is so recognizing the skills that the kids are going to need if they want to be content creators, if they want to excel, so that they're using the tools in a ways that support their growth.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what I hear from kids, they all want to be content creators in some manner. That is a really big thing that kids love to do, whether it's videos, which is mostly what it is, you know, blog posts, pictures, memes, all of that. So they're all creators. That's where the content is coming from, especially TikTok. TikTok is so interesting. There's so much content on there. It's all coming from super young users, and other users are going to it for information. So it's like this vicious circle. Yeah, so lots
Well, and it,
about.
yeah, that does raise a question about the kind of communication that kids are doing a lot of, and are we preparing them? Do they have visual literacy? Are they able to translate what we think of as literacy, which is, you know, reading text, into this broader arena of communication tools that they have such easy access to?
Yeah, and one thing I did want to kind of summarize with is, while we're worrying about ChatGPT, you know, remember the number one place that kids go to look something up is YouTube. They're not using Google. They're not using ChatGPT. They're using YouTube. So it's funny that we've never had a moral panic about that, you know, because there's a lot of stuff on YouTube you don't want your kids using to cite from. So anyway, whole nother topic. So here we're at our wrap up point time here, Pam. I'm going to go first because I have fewer. Pam has a lot. And again, are really good. And we're going to synthesize her ideas for you in a PDF that you'll get tomorrow in the place that we post this webinar, which you'll find out about in the email you get. And for those of you who are watching online, you can always go to our CyberWise chat place on the CyberWise website, which is cyberwise.org. But in the meantime, my wrap up is, don't be afraid of what you don't know. Ask kids, they'll show you, do it together. It's interesting. It's the way of the future. We can't be afraid because it's going to happen whether we're afraid or not. And then, you know, be sure they're getting digital literacy lessons in school that will help them cope with whatever new technology comes their way. So those are my two takeaways.
Yeah, and so my first takeaway is don't lecture your kids or assume that your kids are going to just use this to cheat, right? Don't just make that assumption right out the chute. Explore it yourself first. Think about how you would use it, and then have a conversation with your kids. And as Diana says, do it with them. But then you can start asking those questions like we talked about earlier. What's okay? What's not okay? What's a cool thing? What's a terrible thing? You know, so that they're thinking about this range of use rather than just, oh, you know, I can use it to do my essays, or I can get in trouble using it, or however. The other thing is that AI is just technology. It does not have an inherent agenda, so don't panic. It will never replace human cognition. It is not science fiction. That stuff is written to scare you, right? That's the goal of entertainment, like science fiction. This is just machine learning that is responsive. It will not go away, however. So the only way to harness that potential is to learn how to use it well, which means those fundamental skills, not like, do I know which button to push? Do I understand ethical thinking? Do I understand critical thinking? And you invest in those are life skills. Those are not media skills.
No matter what technology comes our way, and there's going to be more, folks. So Pam, I'm going to ask you one last question that popped up. How do you think ChatGPT could be used to help school counselors meet their demands? That's a great question, because I know they have a lot of demands on their time right now.
Oh man, you know, I can see that being used, and this is just sort of off the top. I can see it be used in a couple ways. One way is that it helps kids a lot process if they can express their feelings. So if kids could just put prompts into ChatGPT and have that conversation with ChatGPT before they talk to the counselor, that might be very, very helpful. Another might be to use it to sort of synthesize the work that you're doing, and sort of so that you can identify the effective patterns that you have that you could then disseminate as even teaching tools. You know, if you feel this, try this. If you feel this, try this, so that you can customize worksheets or customize information for kids. It's, you know, you guys have such a big load right now after the pandemic, and kids have lost a year of school. A lot of them are behind. A lot of them are incredibly anxious about all of this stuff. And so my heart goes out to you because I know what you face in a daily basis. So I would say experiment and figure out what you can leverage and what you can use that will make your job easier.
Right. That's a great answer, Pam. Okay, so to end this, I asked ChatGPT, how should we end our webinar on ChatGPT today? So it told me to thank you for attending and engaging with the webinar. I should express my appreciation. So thank you for your time and attention, and highlight any upcoming events. So number one, our next chat is going to be on should we ban TikTok? Lots to talk about there. That will be on March 23rd. We'll send you more information on that. For those of you who are listening to this as a podcast, we post all of our webinars as a webinar and a podcast on the cyberwise.org website under the Cyberwise chat tab. So very easy to find us. We're also on all the streaming services for podcasts. And what else, Pam? Am I forgetting?
Nope. I think that ChatGPT did a pretty good job. And then the only thing else I would say is beyond thank you is if you have questions or issues or topics that you think would be good for us to talk about or that would be helpful to you, don't hesitate to let us know, because we really want to sort of understand what you're facing and try and offer you whatever we can.
Great. And we just got a message. Thank you from Zimbabwe. Very informative.
Oh, how fun.
That's what's so lovely about these things and technology, is that we can do this and reach people that we will never have a chance to see face to face. So thank you so much for attending. All right, Pam, I will talk to you soon. TikTok.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Again,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.